Well, the Bassmaster Elite Series finally had their first event of the year. I got to be honest with you, I was not really intrigued about it. Just didn't really think they did a lot this year to change things up. I think they had some opportunities to, but they didn't. That's beside the point. I will say this. The tournament, however, turned out to be a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. Very interesting. I liked it. I thought it was a good one. I thought it was one of the best ones I've seen in a long time. Why was that? There's a lot of things that went on. A lot. And I missed most of it. I did. I can't help that. I watched Thursday. Thursday was kind of boring. Sometimes Thursdays are boring only because they put cameras on guys and it's you never know. You never know if that guy's going to catch them. So there were some good weights brought in. A lot of the guys that had cameras on them did not catch those weights. So it can kind of be boring with that. I don't know if they need to figure out another system. I don't know if they need to figure out if some guy's catching them and then try to get on them or whatever. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm the only one. But I did watch a little bit of Thursday, off and on, throughout the day. Friday, I went practicing. And so I practiced all day long Friday, so I didn't watch anything Friday. I was on the water. The most miserable day on the water I've had all year. I've been in some really, really cold days. This was just cold, rainy, windy. I think my rods froze till 11 or 12 o'clock that day. I think it was a high of 34 or 35 blowing. Not hard blowing, but blowing enough when it's 34 that it was pretty miserable all day long. All of us said that. Saturday I fished a tournament. We caught a whole bunch of fish. We had all lookalikes, had like 15 something pounds. Maybe I have footage for that. I'm not sure. I did take footage of it. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Got back home late. Through all that, Bassmaster did a really good job social media wise, that they did like have a lot of clips. So I was watching, I was like, oh, guys were catching them bed fishing. I didn't know, like when we did our Bass Open Pros pick'em, we kind of saw the weather and I just kind of figured maybe they wouldn't be on beds, but guys caught them off beds. Not great, but guys caught them off beds. Bill Lowen up there throwing a swim jig. I remember what a swim jig was. I have tons of them on the wall. I fish them. I just didn't know anyone else fished them. And what I mean by that is, I know Bill Lowen fishes them. Bill Lowen's probably one of the best swim jig fishermen in the country. What I'm saying is man, it's been a long time since something like that shows up in tournaments. I think that was a good thing. I'm gonna get into that. We had guys fishing down canals, and yeah, some guys were using Livescope and stuff to jerk bait some fish and stuff, but it was just an old school fashion, like beat the bank. It's kind of what people wanted. And I think it delivered, but it delivered more on this side of things. I did a video about like how guys find these fish or these areas, not the fish, the areas they fish. In that video, I was really I really wanted to ask some of these guys, like, what's their process when they go out there? I know mine. It's one of those things we've never really talked about. I've never really asked some of these guys. I think Lee might be a good one. Lee Livescope, Hackney. I can ask a couple other guys, like, try to get them on the podcast and see what they have to say about that. I have to ask guys that I really think are going to be honest and truthful. And what I mean by that is, you can go off of like if you're looking at footage and research, I could care less about that. Like if that's the way you do it, and that's fine if you do it, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not going to look off of old footage. I've never done that. I think that's a whole nother video that I was going to do. But regardless, yeah, if you're not looking up and researching, right, for where they caught them in the past, and you just go out there and you have an idea of what you want to go look for, that's what I wanted to know. So I'm gonna go ask him that. I got back, watched some footage, and I'm like, oh, Bill Lowen is like killing it on a swim jig. And like I said, I didn't watch day 2 and day 3, but I saw highlights and I saw the weights. I mean, Shakurik was catching them. They said he was catching them on a jerkbait and stuff. And but Lowen doing his thing, and then John Garrett went down and smashed him one of the days. I couldn't really figure out what he was doing because I didn't watch. I just saw clips of him but I didn't really know what he was like, his deal was doing. That's beside the point. This is what I found interesting. This is what, to me, when I watch fishing, this is what I used to love. This is what I relate to. And this is what I think about. This is the stuff that, like, I think this is the stuff that makes fishermen really, really, really good, is this part right here. On day 4, I didn't watch a lot of it till the ending. I just had other stuff to do since I'd been gone for a couple days. So I turn on, and I'm just expecting Bill Lowen to be kind of blowing this thing out. He had a pretty good lead. I don't remember what the lead was. And all of a sudden I look down, and it's like 72 pounds. And then second place, Shakuri, 72 pounds. And then it had, I don't think it was John Garrett. It was Shane LaHue, 72 pounds. Now, granted, these are all Bass Track numbers. So I was like, well, who's holding out, or are these real numbers? But I saw Bill Lowen with 4. And I'm going, oh, well, I know there's only 2 hours left. Or it was like something like 2 hours left. I'm like, oh, he'll catch another one. And when you have 0, and what I mean by 0 is you have 4 and you have just any kind of fish will knock up another pound or 2. That's hard to cull for the other guys that have already had a decent bag. I didn't see John Garrett's at first, how many fish he had, right? So I'm just looking at those 3 guys, and I'm watching, and I'm like, all right, and it was on Bill Lowen, and Bill Lowen's on a swim jig. And he's covering lots of water really, really fast. Like, he's not picking it apart, which I'm not going to argue with what he was doing. I just found it interesting. And then it showed a replay of him catching the big one, flipping, and you know, the announcers were like, man, I hope he flips some more. And Bill Lowen like flipped 3 times in this mat and kept going. I heard about the John Garrett thing. They were like, John Garrett made a move. And I guess he left his area to go try to catch more fish, because he only had 2, I think, at the time. So he's like realizing that his area is not that good, or he realizes, and this is the part, like, this is the whole thing. This is so awesome what's been going down. He realizes that he needs to try to catch a limit. Now, this is the part I love. I can't remember, but I've been in the lead or top 3 in Toyotas over 10 times. I mean, one year I did it like like, I think my first year I won my Angler of the Year, except the first tournament. No, the second tournament I was in second after day 1. The third tournament, Toledo Bend, I led every day. The 4th tournament, I was in second. Then I was in first going to the final day, ended up in second. And then the next year, the first tournament, I was in second the first day, first the second day, and then ended up second. Now, a couple of those, it was funny. Out of those 4 events that I was either leading or in second, I broke down in 2 of the events. One, it didn't cost me. The other one, it definitely cost me. I lost by 4 ounces at Amstead, and there's nothing I can do about that. I lost 4 hours of fishing time, maybe more. It was a bad deal. I was crushing on them. Once I got everything fixed and back to running again, I started crushing on them again. But a lot of these other events, I was leading at Dardanelle one time, and all those events, anytime I've been leading first, second, or third, or in that shot, the decision making on what you're supposed to do is so difficult. And here's why. And this is pre-Livescope. I'm gonna get into this. Bill Lowen probably thought he lost the tournament. He had 4 fish. He knew he didn't have much weight. I'm guessing he probably thought he lost the tournament, and that's creeping in. John Garrett for sure thinks he needs to catch him, and here's why. He knows Bill Lowen's been catching him, and he's probably sitting there going, I have to catch at least a limit, because you got to give yourself a chance. On the final day, and it's weird, I don't care if it's a 3 or a 4 day event, the final day, weird stuff happens. Now, a lot of times the guy who's leading it goes ahead and catches them. In this day and age, I think the guy leading has a better shot of winning. And I say that because of Livescope. And that's a long discussion, but I just believe with the way Livescope is and how it makes it a little bit easier to catch fish. Like if you're live scoping fish, it's a different way of catching them. And a lot of times, and maybe I go into this about this even this past weekend, like we tried to do some certain things. And I was like, hey, I got these fish out here. We can go live scope real quick. We had 2 at the time. It was like 9:30 or 10. We put 3 fish in the boat in like 4 minutes. Like we were never worried about going and doing that. Like we could go catch fish anytime we want to live scoping. We were just trying to catch some bigger ones, doing some different things. That's the thing now. That if you have some fish that you can live scope, and it's kind of, I wouldn't say easy, but there's times when live scoping is like, oh, you're going to catch 50, 60 a day. You just put your head down and live scope. So it's a different way of looking at it. When you're regular fishing, the fishing we've done all our lives, like what Bill Lowen was doing probably was fairly easy for him for 3 days. And for whatever reason, it got hard the 4th day, right? It happens to all of us. It changes on us. It's so hard when you're leading an event and doing something for 3 days to then just change it up the 4th day. Because you're like, man, this got me here. I got this big lead. You don't change. And I'm not saying he should have changed. I'm just saying it's a thing. John Garrett then catches this giant bag, and then it's not the same for him on day 4. And he probably didn't realize, and they were talking about that, he could have just stayed there and they're like, hey, you're going to go try to catch 3 little ones. When 1 5-pounder, they were like, 1 5-pounder, he could win this thing. And he didn't know that either. And so that's the crazy part. And then Shakurik's just trying to like catch them, and you don't know what everyone has. Now in the MLF format, kind of people know what they have, and it makes for a different deal. And it would have made it, some of those guys talk about how the pressure gets to you on MLF because you're always having to like catch them while other people are catching them. But you do know. And in this one, you don't know. And that fear of unknown, I think, is sometimes pretty tough. And you don't really know what to do. And it's the decision making without knowing. And I will say, when you fish bigger events with really good fishermen, and I mean the elites, let's face it, like they're the best, you just have to assume, even though you shouldn't, but you just have to assume they're going to catch them. I would. And even in these other events I fish, like on Rayburn, rarely do people mess up. I mean, they rarely falter on the final day. So I'm always going out there. I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, man, if I'd have just caught some fish, I might have won. Or vice versa. I've learned over the years too that like you better get a limit, because I've seen the guy on the final day not catch them, or a couple of them. And it's just one of those things. It's like, how do you manage that? And it's fun. I won a tournament on Rayburn one time because I was in 9th place. I talked about it this last Toyota event that I was in 22nd. And I was like, I fished so slow, and I fished pretty good because I really didn't live scope. And I caught one of the bigger bags just based on the weather conditions. You know, I stayed shallow while everyone else was live scoping, and I caught a pretty decent bag and moved way on up. I had that luxury. I didn't have anything to worry about. So a lot of times, even like that tournament I won, I was in 9th place going to the final day, and I'm just going for the biggest bag I could get. Once I'd already caught a decent bag, I mean, one of the last decisions I made and caught a 10-pounder was because I had nothing to lose. And man, that pressure of being in the lead or whatever it is, it's not even the pressure of being in the lead. It's just, you at least have to go do the bare minimum, because the bare minimum sometimes wins it. But then in the back of your head, you're like, man, am I laying up, or am I not going for the win? And so when I mean by going for the win, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to go throw this big bait all day long. No, it's just kind of sticking with what got you there sometimes is going for the win. When you know you could go maybe do something else and kind of lay up and catch a mediocre weight and still win. But that's what I found so interesting. And then to watch how it all unfolded, and for Bill Lowen to still win. And like that's the kind of stuff like John Garrett. I like if I see him at the Classic, I'm gonna ask him about that. Maybe I didn't even get him on. Like I want to talk to those guys about some of that stuff and about what they think about when that stuff's going on. I know John Garrett's part of the Strike King Lose team. I've never really talked to him. I can probably get his number. Maybe I can get him on there and ask him this, because I think this is the stuff. Like this right here is what really interests me in fishing. That mentality of like what's going through their heads and like what they really think about it all. I don't think you get it as much, like I said, with Livescope. This isn't a knock on it. There's something different about it. When it's like the unknown. I mean, it's like like I said, it's like the unknown. It's like not knowing what the fish are doing and trying to figure it out because you're not looking at Livescope, not knowing what the other anglers are doing. Like all that stuff is mentally draining. And yeah, sometimes I like that part of the fishing more than anything else. Like if I'm out there fishing, I like the fishing part. If I'm watching fishing and interested about stuff, that's the part I'm interested about. So I thought it was a great tournament. I hope the same thing goes down in Okeechobee. Wire to wire, or when I mean wire to wire, like comes down right to the end. This one was a cool event. I liked it. Old school stuff, man. It's pretty cool. Didn't know how the tournament was going to be won. Every other tournament this year, it's like minnow, and scope. And this was like all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. That was a cool. I like it like that. I do. I like the variety. I like not knowing what's going to win. I like watching guys do totally different things to catch them. That's the cool stuff. So, yeah, they did good on their tournament. There's some other stuff they messed up on, but that's for another day. We'll talk about that maybe sometime later. I'm not ready for that yet because I'm about to go crush on some fish right now. Got some new stuff in by owner. I'll probably make that video tomorrow. And got some prototypes in. I'm going to go throw them today and tomorrow. And hopefully I'll get that video out to y'all soon. All right. See you guys.